The CEO Hour with Dean Akers. The mission? To help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEOs, is your business growing? Where's your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome to this week's CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs each week and entrepreneurs each week that share their journey of the good things and the bad things they've done and found out along the way. Today, we have Dr. Nick Kavouklis, a dentist here in the Tampa Bay area, but you would not know he's a dentist because he's the ultimate entrepreneur. Welcome, Dr. Nick.
Thank you, Dean. That was a very nice introduction.
Well, Nick, you and I have known each other for a while, and when we first met, you've never been just a dentist, have you?
Not really. I mean, since I was 15 years old, I got my first job. I've never been successful working for anybody. My first job I got fired from at Gigi's Pizza because I refused to clean the bathrooms, and so I remember Valencia Gardens. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
I got fired from there. I still see the owner, David Agliano, because I was eating too much ice cream. So, I don't know. I've not been a good employee all my life.
Well, you grew up in what area?
I was born in Tarpon Springs, where all the Greeks emigrated. My grandfather came in 1915, was a sponge boat captain, and my dad was an attorney and realized Tarpon Springs really wasn't a metropolis for attorneys, so moved to Tampa. We migrated to the big city, and I've been here since I was 10 years old. So I'm a native Floridian, and Tampa's my home.
Boy, there's not many of you in the boat anymore.
Yeah, really.
So where'd you go to high school?
I went to Jesuit High School.
Jesuit High School, and you went off to school here locally, didn't you?
I went to USF my first year, and all my buddies went to Florida State, and they were in fraternity. So I said, you know what, I want to go up there. And I went to Florida State. I was in the Kappa Alpha fraternity, got bad grades, knew I wasn't going to get into dental school that way. So I came home, worked while I was in college, lived at home, commuted to USF. That was before they even had a football team, right? Worked at Burns Steakhouse as a maitre d' and a wine steward. And then I graduated and applied for dental school at the University of Florida.
Well, that's kind of interesting because you were young. Did you aspire to be a dentist at what age?
Well, ever since I watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Herbie. Not really. No, I didn't. I didn't really aspire. I was good with my hands. I had a friend, my younger brother had a friend whose dad was an orthodontist. And my brother was always going lobstering and fishing with them. He was always going hunting with them. And they lived in a big house on the Palmacia Golf Course. So I thought, hey, that sounds like a good job to me. That's what I want to do. So that was, I hate to say it, as simple of a reason why.
But that's a good reason because a lot of entrepreneurs, their vision is success. But then, before we opened up, you were sharing with me some of your challenges with conforming.
Right. And as a dentist, you do work for yourself.
Yeah, you work for yourself. So you go to the University of Florida, you get a degree in dentistry there. Mm-hmm. What brought you back to Tampa?
Oh, well, my family, I love Tampa. I think it's a great little city. I never aspired to live anywhere else. There's only about 90 days out of the year, right, that Florida and Tampa is not fun to be around, July, August, and some of September. But the rest of the year, it's great weather. And as you know, as you've seen, Tampa's really grown.
So you get back to Tampa and you start your practice. Did you just come back and start a dental practice?
No, I went to work for a well-established dentist on Davis Island. And his father was well-known nationally. He was going on in years in his early 80s, retiring, and his son, who was 50-ish at the time, I was 28-ish, said I could use somebody to help me. And he had built a brand new office right on Davis Island, and beautiful, and I worked there part-time. And the other part-time, there was a friend of ours who was an orthodontist. I think I mentioned him earlier, Mike Abdoni. And he had ownership in a practice in Riverview, which I didn't even know where Riverview was. And he said, look, we could use somebody to go out there. And I said, I don't know. I went out there. It was a pretty sparse office in a strip center, right? And so I worked there part-time. Then the dentist in South Tampa said, look, I need you to sign a no-compete contract where, you won't take any of my patients if you leave. And I thought, well, that sounds reasonable to me. And I said, now you'll sign the same thing, right? You won't take any of my patients. I don't have any, but if I get some. He said, no, I can't do that. So I didn't feel as if that person was going to be equitable with me going forward. So I decided, bit the bullet and just worked out in Riverview. And that was probably a good decision because I think there was only one other dentist in town at the time, and as you know, Riverview's really grown. I mean,
oh my God!
It was 2 lanes. They sold goats on the side of the road. It was mainly fish farms, and I had a lot of carnival people that were my patients. Lobster Boy came in, and so I was very busy, and that's where I started my career.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, especially our listeners, that if they grew up in Tampa recently, or they're in their 20s or 30s, they don't remember that Riverview Gibsonton was and still is one of the winter storage or what for carnivals and stuff, and a lot of the big carnival groups lived in that area, didn't they?
The Giant used to live out there. Remember him? The Giant?
Yeah. So you're working with Abadoni down there?
No, I had bought the practice.
You bought his practice?
I bought his practice for $40,000. And even back then, it wasn't much of a price. And I went to the bank and they turned me down. I said, wait a minute. I just graduated from dental school. I got a little debt. I had school debt, but was living very modestly. My wife was working at the time, and so they turned me down. I said, you got to be kidding me. $40,000 cars cost more than $40,000. But nevertheless, I persevered and went to a friend who was a banker, same age, and I guess maybe it had something to do with the fact that I'd written my business plan down on one piece of graph paper. But nevertheless, I ultimately got the loan and worked in that office for a period of time till I could afford to build a new office, and went on from there.
So our listeners out there that caught what age are you at that point?
29.
Yeah. So our listeners out there that are young entrepreneurs or whatever, you knew you could get this done, didn't you, in your heart?
Well, I always felt that if you just stick your nose to the grindstone, you will succeed ultimately. But there are going to be some failures along the way, that's for sure. And that was actually, an initial failure I hadn't prognosticated. Can't get a loan from the bank for $40,000, but that's the reality of business.
But it didn't stop you.
No, it didn't stop me. You just have to go in a different direction. That's all.
I think that's one of the things I've found, having been an entrepreneur myself and had entrepreneurs, we've had a lot of them on the shows, is you can't stop, can you?
I think the best, motto that I always remembered is you find a way or make a way, right? We've heard that. There's not starting a business, growing a business, it can be a messy proposition. Every dot is not going to be, or every T is not going to be crossed, and every dot's not going to be placed on every I. And so I think you have to be aware of the roundabout way you might have to get to the end point.
So now you have your practice out in Riverview, and you're seeing a myriad of different people. Where are you living?
I lived in South Tampa, but I thought it would be wise to move out to Riverview. And at the time, as I said, there was 2 lanes, and Winn-Dixie grocery store was about the only place, and most people that went in there went in barefooted, and then a lot of them paid in quarters because they were carnival ride owners. And I took my wife out there at the time. She was pregnant with twins, and I said, honey, let's try to find a house, And we looked around, and she said, I don't want to live out here because there's nothing out here. So I would always commute, which was 14 miles, lived in South Tampa. Fortunately for me, the crosstown had just been built. And I mean, nobody was on the crosstown. So it would take me, and there were a lot less traffic lights between our house and my office, and it would take me 16 minutes at the most to go door to door. A lot of my buddies worked at the bank, and they would have to go in the parking garage and go up 3 or 4 stores, and then they had to get in the elevator and go across the Sky Bridge, and it'd take them 20, 25 minutes. So I was fortunate to be going opposite the traffic, and I liked it. It was good. That was before cell phones, so I would listen to music or books on tape or something.
So you're married, and you have your first twins, you said, or she's pregnant with twins?
She's pregnant with twins, had twins.
This is your first children, right?
Yes, my first children, who are now 30, right?
Oh, my gosh.
They're both contributors to society, which is, as a parent, that's all you want. Just to be good citizens and good people, right? And since I had 3 more children after that, but a lot of things happened. You know, I'm out there. I remember the first day in practice calling my wife and telling her, hey, I made $200 today. I took out 4 wisdom teeth. I was so excited. Of course, my wife and I at the time shared a car, so I'd drop her off at work. She worked at the bank. Then I'd go out to Riverview. Then after I finished, I'd come pick her up and we'd go home. So in the beginning, it's wise to live well within your means. Could have been tempting for us to have 2 cars and not have to carpool with one another, but we just felt that was the wisest thing to do in the beginning.
Isn't it funny? Because when you meet people now, people think you fall out of the womb successful. We had a lady on our show not too long ago, and everybody, if you met her, you just think, oh, she's had this gifted life of everything given to her. And she actually, at age 19, was a Marine, and she's 51 now. So, you know, the journeys are really cool. So you had a really kind of a tight start in your journey as far as watching your numbers, paying attention to the point of the big day you had and you called her. How exciting was that?
I think for the first half a year, my dental assistant, I only had 1 employee. As a dentist, I didn't have a hygienist. I did my hygiene. And she made more money than I did for the first 6 months.
Well, we're talking to Dr. Nick Kavouklis today. Dr. Nick, as he's known in the Tampa Bay area. So we'll be right back with our next segment.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. We'll be right back.
So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you Dr. Nick Kavouklis today. And Dr. Nick is sharing his journey. And one of the things, Nick, that I love is when people get to listen to your journey and the journeys of others is people think we as successful business folks and entrepreneurs, we just fall out of the womb that way. Not so, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you're not prepared for rejection, disappointment, a lot of sleepless nights sometimes, you know, the hardest person to work for is yourself, should be the hardest person. And, you know, my motto is just try to be, there's an old saying, be yourself because everyone else is taken. All I can do is be the best version of myself I can be.
Well, that's good advice. So now you're dropping your wife off at the bank. She's pregnant with twins. You're working down in Gibson. You get up at one morning and look in the mirror and go, what am I doing?
Well, it wasn't the most fun place to be. All my buddies were going in their suits and ties, lawyers and bankers and real estate guys, to lunch all the time. I had nobody to go to lunch with. We'd have an ABC pizza out there, and I'd get excited. One of my buddies would call and say, hey, I need my teeth checked. Can I come out there? I'd schedule them right before lunch, so I can go to lunch and feel like I was with the crowd. But so it was a sort of a lonely journey, but it was a good start. And then my wife had babies. They were premature twins, and so it was wisest for her to stay home. I felt as if the financial sacrifice was worth that, and so ever since my twins were born, or before they were born actually, because she was on bed rest, we've been a single parent earner, so to speak. And so you make sure that you cut back. I mean, I mowed my yard myself till I was almost 35, 36 years old, and always was fixing things at the house, just trying to make sure that we didn't spend unnecessary dollars so that my wife could stay home. I mean,
are your twins identical twins, or?
Yeah, they were identical.
Boys or girls?
2 boys.
Oh, wow. You came out of the gate strong, huh?
Yeah.
That's got to be awesome. So you've got your family going. You've got 2 twins. You're running your practice out in Gibsonton. What transition happened during that practice that either helped you decide you wanted to get out of working on teeth and be an entrepreneur, or what? Tell me what cycles happened, or tell our listeners how you woke up either one day or what happened.
I don't know that I woke up one day. I mean, I've always been a serial entrepreneur since I was a kid. I mowed yards. I would send out flyers to the neighborhood asking if anybody was having a Christmas party. Did they need some help around the house? Did they need some trees trimmed? Did they need a bartender, underage bartender, for their Christmas party? And never really had, my dad, when I was 15, said, you need to get a job. I said, okay. So I worked construction every summer when I was at Jesuit. One other summer, I worked at Malio's. Remember Malio's?
Oh, yeah.
I was a bus boy there.
The original Malio's.
The original Malio's, right. I had a lot of different jobs, and I think I'll never forget. My last year in high school, my dad said, you need to get a job. I said, Dad, I have a job. This was the summer before my senior year. I said, Dad, I've got a job. I'm working construction. He goes, yeah, but I'm talking about at night. You should probably get a job at night, too. So I got a job at night. Used to run Harry Smith's gym for $2 an hour, right? Worked at Palio's Fried Chicken for $2 and all I could eat. I worked at Valencia Gardens, as I said. Got fired from Valencia for eating too much ice cream. So I think, as I tell my children, you will never brag about the easy times that you had. You only brag about the trials and tribulations, the struggles that you went through. Nobody says, I had it so easy. My dad bought me a brand new car when I was 16, and I never had to work a day in my life, and I think it's great. That's not what people are proud of.
No, and it's not who defines you. I got to laugh, though, when you said Malio's and Valencia Gardens. I think we ought to do a show called If the Booths Could Talk.
Yeah, if the booths can talk. That's right. There was a lot of secretive things that went on in those booths.
When I was in my 20s, I used to go there because I had clients that I'm not going to mention their names on air today. But I remember can you imagine them being alive in today's era with the phones and the photographs and stuff? It'd be crazy.
Yeah, no, that was a gone by era.
Gone by era. So now you've got this work discipline that you started when you were a young man, which is, I think that's probably a common thread for most entrepreneurs. Would you say?
Absolutely.
And then now you've got your own practice. So in theory, you're an entrepreneur, but you're an entrepreneur that can't leverage it because you can only make as much money as you can work on, right?
Well, as a dentist, or even as let's call it a surgeon, I'm not making money unless my fingers are moving. Right. So I couldn't couldn't scale myself that easily. I did decide that I wanted to try to have multiple offices, and so I was a sort of a leader at that time of trying to have various offices. I had 4 offices, and the problem was back then it was difficult to find dentists to work for you. Since that time, there are a lot of more dental schools. There's more amount of dentists. Plus, there's a lot of 50% of dental schools now are females, and a lot of females don't want to work full time for obvious reasons, and so they'll end up working for dental service organizations like Aspen Dental and so forth. And so it's easier now to have multiple offices. Back then, it wasn't easy. I had won't necessarily name their names, but I had one dentist that he'd prefer to read the Sports Illustrated than work. I had another one. He had a lazy eye, right? So I was concerned about the quality of the work I was able to oversee because I couldn't be in all 4 offices. So I ended up selling those offices to the dentist that I had hired. It was a good experience, learning experience. And so after that, or along the way, I remember despising dental insurance companies. And what incited me to start one was I felt I could probably do that, and I said there's a reason why every big city's tallest building has the name of a bank on it or the name of an insurance company, because that's legalized gambling. These guys are making lots of money. So I said, let me see if I can do a better job, because they would interfere with my diagnosis as a dentist. They would delay payments, just basic business practices that I felt could be improved on. And that's why part of the reason I started a dental insurance company. I had an employee who was the HR manager for Gardenier phosphate plant.
I remember that.
I don't know who owns it now, but Mosaic. So they had about, I said, Frances, how many employees you have? She said, well, we got about 1,500. And I said, don't they all live about 20-mile radius from our office? She said, yes. I said, well, how much do you guys spend on dental insurance? She said, well, we spend about $300,000 a year. And I said, wow, that's a lot of money back then. I said, what if you just gave me $250,000 and I do everything that those patients need? She said, well, I don't know if you can do that without a license. I said, well, what kind of license? And so I started looking into, and that's when I got my first insurance license from the Department of Insurance.
Wow. Well, so again, you spotted a need, and you spotted a kind of a void or a service issue that if you could fix it would make it better for the patient and for the provider, right?
Right. Exactly.
And so what now you're doing all this still at your office down in Gibsonton?
Yeah, no, I would get up, I had at that time I had 3 kids and 1 on the way, and I was the breadwinner, and I needed to write a business plan. But because the application to the Department of Insurance required some predicting of how you would sell and a business plan and profit and loss statements, which, let's face it, I had a biology degree, right? They didn't teach me Excel spreadsheets. So I went to Barnes & Noble's, got a how to write a business plan book. And I'd see my first patients in my office at 7:30, so I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I would start trying to write a business plan before I had to leave my house at 7 to get there at my 7:30 appointment.
That had to be an educational experience in and of itself.
I know my business plan would win no awards, and fortunately, the bureaucrats in Tallahassee may not have been any better at it than I was, and so I was given a license.
Well, we're going to go into the third segment here in a few minutes, and I think one of the things I'm hearing right now is the road that you've been on has had bumps in it.
Absolutely. Any entrepreneur who says they haven't, I don't know that they're recalling their events correctly.
Right. So picturing a guy coming out of dental school, very schooled in what he does, and now he's faced with a niche that he sees that's just apparent because it's solving a problem, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so once you solve this problem, you're going to be helping people on both sides of the equation.
Certainly, although there are so many obstacles in the way, if you try to dot every I and cross every T beforehand, you'll never get off the couch. Well,
and that was what kind of my summary was, is that all these gauntlets that you run through are part of what makes you up.
I think so. I mean, failures teach you, or they teach you that you ultimately have to get back up. How many times you get back up, I think, is directly proportional to how successful you will be.
Wow. Well, when we come back in segment 3, we're going to talk about getting back up after failures and the growth of this vision you had, which I think is fabulous, and for all the right reasons. Most entrepreneurs' visions are born out of some need they see. So this is Dean Akers, again, your host for the CEO Hour, and we'll be back in segment 3 with Dr. Nick.
Helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Helping to navigate today's marketplace for startups and mainstays. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 3 of the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, again bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs every week that share their journeys. This week we have Dr. Nick Kavouklis on, a dentist by trade, but much more than that, and an entrepreneur, which we're going to go in this segment starting to develop how he really got on that journey. And but right before the break, he shared how he started to see this need that was apparent, which was connecting the patients to really great care, and then having great caregivers have the right kind of programs that were fair for them. So, Nick, you've met with the big phosphate company. What did they say?
Well, as I said, she said, I don't think you can do that, and I was a little disappointed. She said, you have to go get a license. So I went through the license process, got a license, and started to build the company. There were so many obstacles, it's really hard to delineate in a segment like this. But I think the overarching lesson that I would want to share with other entrepreneurs or other people is to remember that it won't be easy, but it will be very satisfying, and you will fail, and you will fail, and you will succeed as long as you don't give up. And I think every day that went by, there seemed like another challenge and another challenge. So, it's not just the knowledge that you're looking for as to be an entrepreneur. You have to really cultivate some intestinal fortitude. A lot of times it's the rejection Olympics, right? You go out there, you can't let those rejections get you back, set you back, and so there's all kinds of life lessons that you have to draw upon to persevere, and really perseverance is, I think, the number one ingredient.
Well, I've been an entrepreneur. I've had a number of companies in all kinds of industries, and I always laugh because people go, "How do you know my business?" I say, "Because they're all kind of the same." But I got to ask you though, when you're going through it and it's tough, but true entrepreneurs are almost, at least a lot of the ones I've met, are almost numb to the toughness because it's part of their DNA to know they're going to get through it. Did that ever happen to you where you knew, hey, bring it on?
Well, I think that I've never been tall, dark, and handsome, and so I've always had to...
Yeah, you're a handsome guy.
I've always had to fight harder than the next guy, but I think that it's difficult for a lot of people to be willing to make the sacrifices. They say if you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes what you sacrifice, and so it's important to have the knowledge.
I got to interrupt you. Say that again. That's profound.
It's not what you want. If you don't sacrifice for what you want is what you sacrifice.
I hope the listeners hear that. In fact, I hope they pause when the podcast goes out, because that's a very powerful statement that should be on somebody's wall. As a matter of fact, I want you to send that to me, because I'm going to put it in our advertisement, because that is so powerful.
Well, I didn't make it up. I'm a big reader, and I always like.
Do you know
positive.
Who the author was of it?
I do not.
Well, then we'll put.
Anonymous, but I just think, and that's another, I think, a key ingredient. As you know, Dean, you got to educate yourself. You said you were involved in a lot of different industries. I read that several of Malcolm Gladwell's books, Freakonomics, and one book, one particular excerpt of Outliers was, was Michael Jordan the tallest basketball player? No, he wasn't the tallest, but he was tall enough. And so I relate that to everybody's intellectual capabilities. Are you can you do this? Are you smart enough? Well, the answer is everybody's smart enough to do what they want to do. It's the combination of smartness and perseverance and practice. You know, some of the best athletes you know will tell you those beautiful passes that you see, those great jumps that I make, those happen when nobody's watching, when I'm practicing and working hard. They don't just naturally come to me. So sure, a lot of natural athletes, and there's a lot of people that have perseverance. When you put them both together, it makes a superstar.
I think the word you're using, perseverance, could be a key ingredient. I would say the people we've had on our show over the last 6-8 months, we've had people on that were living in their car and now have $40 and $50 million annualized sales businesses making stupid money, but they lived in a car for a year and a half and got thrown out, you know, of everywhere they went. I'm talking about trying to get their thing up. And it sounds like for you had a lot of perseverance when you were sitting back there and driving all the way out to Gibsonton and putting your plans together. That first business plan you wrote, do you still have a copy of it?
I think I can find it, but I wouldn't show it to anybody.
You should.
No.
You got to be a legacy for your kids, because you got 5 kids, right?
5 kids and a stepson who's in dental school.
Oh, wow.
He didn't listen to me. I said, don't go to dental school, but that's where he went anyways.
Well, you know why? Because he's going to work with a dental insurance company that's going to take good care of him.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly.
So what are your 5 kids doing now?
Well, my twins are 30, and one works with me in the dental insurance company. He's in our sales team, and he's a natural salesman. My other son is in Special Forces in the Navy, decided to sacrifice, had a great career in insurance. And he woke up one day, and I said, son, so what's going on at the office this week? He said, well, Dad, I have a new job. I said, what? And so he said he joined the Navy, and I'm sort of envious of him. I think, you know, my generation, you and I are about the same. That was after the draft and in between wars, and I think if I could have, I would have gone to the military now that I know what I'm in. My third son is a banker in real estate, very, very good at it, and my 2 daughters are in school.
Well, I have 5 sons, and all mine are out of school now, and their successes, I live vicariously through them, as you shared at the break.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, they're supposed to be the new and improved models, right?
Yeah. So now you've really convinced yourself you want to really get. Was when you were out at Garnier, when you got your insurance license, is that when you really started Argus?
No, I had another company called Paramount Dental.
That's the one when I met you were doing.
Right. And so I started that company, didn't know what I was doing, made a lot of mistakes, had a few successes, but grew a nice little company. And I had it for 4 years, and I'll be darned, somebody from a small public company called me and said, we'd like to buy your company. And so I ended up selling it to them a year and a half later, and worked for them for a very short period of time. And the CEO came to me and said, Dr. Nick, I don't think this is working. And I said, well, I think you're right, but you can't fire me because I quit. And so it was a very freeing sensation for me. This was a public company. It was corporate bureaucracy. Couldn't make a decision. I felt all I did all day long was sit and answer emails, as opposed to go out and do what I did best, and that's creating something from nothing and then building it. And so I sold that company. In between, I worked on some Dr. Nick's products, whitening.
I remember.
Yeah, mouthwash, toothpaste, whitening gel, breath spray, and was on Home Shopping.
I remember that.
Yeah, and we did pretty well. I'll never forget, we had a sunrise show, and I had 20 minutes in the morning, and on before me was Tony Little. Remember Tony Little,
yeah.
the Gazelle?
Yeah.
So Tony got on there, did well. I got on there, and surprisingly, it was my first time, did well. So we both were supposed to be on in the afternoon, and the producer said, we're going to cut each of you down to 10 minutes because you're going to sell out. And so I went on and sold out. And Tony went on, and he said, I had to stay. He comes off, he goes, darn. I go, what happened? He goes, I had to stay on an extra 10 minutes. I said, why? He said, because you kept the phone lines jammed. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So But after that, my no-compete was up, and I said, you know what? I had a lot of people in the industry saying, you need to start this up again. And what I like about insurance, it's a very scalable business. It has, ultimately, if you work hard, you can make it a national organization. And so I started Argus, me and one person, my CFO, Jeff Parslow, who's still with me. And that was 11 years ago.
Wow. So you did Home Shop. I had forgotten all that. You did Home Shopping Network. That had to be a hoot.
Yeah, it was funny. Interesting. Makeup, all that kind of stuff. Look at the camera. You see people on television, the newscasters now, and you go, wow, okay, they're looking at the right camera. They're not looking at the right camera. So there's definitely an art form to learning how to do that.
Did that give you, I have a feeling that confidence was never an issue for you.
Unwarranted confidence, right? So I read a book a long time ago. Everybody's heard of Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Well, he wrote another book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And so one of the pearls in that book is, look, think of the realistic worst-case scenario. Not the worst-case scenario, the realistic worst-case scenario, and make a contingency plan for that. And that should give you confidence that you're comforted. Like I had said in the beginning, if this company, Argus, I had started and used all my savings to start it and got to the very end of my savings. And over time, as we grew, our company required a lot of reserves. The state requires, just like banks have to have capital, I have to have capital. So I sold this investment, I sold this stock, I sold this piece of property. I mortgaged my house not once, not twice, 3 times. And so I always told my wife, here's the realistic worst case scenario, that I have to go back to being a dentist, go work for somebody. We live in a decent home. And I told her, don't forget, some of the best things in life are less than $20. For me, a cigar and a bourbon. And so I'd be a happy guy. And you can always buy a book for less than $20, right?
Well, I really appreciate it. As we finish up segment 3, we have Dr. Nick on today, and he's really shared his journey. And what a cool journey this is. When we come back in segment 4, he's going to really share the steps that took him to really grow Argus Dental, leaving the position of an on-air celebrity of Home Shopping Network.
Success never takes the weekend off. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment.
Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. CEO physical @adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 4 of the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, and today we have Dr. Nick Kavouklis on. Dr. Nick, what a journey, buddy. You're really... This is why we do the show, is to have folks on like you that really bring the real journey to our listeners. And, at the break, you and I were talking about it, and you said, I'm uncomfortable sharing, things. And I said, Dr. Nick, really what you're sharing is you're sharing your experiences so that somebody, if one person that's listening to this radio show gets one idea, has it been worth your time today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think all entrepreneurs don't mind sharing their story, but we certainly want to, I guess it's in our nature, sometimes we're probably what people would say overly serendipitous. We look at the glass half full all the time, right? I've talked to lawyers along the way, and they'll always say, as far as advice, and they'll say, look, this could happen and that could happen. Well, we know these things can happen, but we won't back out of our driveway at the beginning of the day if we're all worried about what could happen. Be realistic, do the right thing, work hard, and I think a lot of things will fall in place for you.
Well, that advice you shared before the break was don't look at the worst case. What was the advice?
Realistic worst case scenario, and make a contingency plan. If you say, we're going to have, if this realistic worst case scenario happens, what's plan B? Don't just go off half-cocked and not have something in your mind as a backup plan. Otherwise, you will fail. There's a reason why, 9 out of 10 small businesses fail in the first 2 years.
I watch small businesses all the time and help them. And I can't tell you how many of them fail for one primary reason. They don't get out of bed in the morning believing they can be successful, and they find all the reasons why their thing's not working. And generally, they're not even out trying to get customers. So now you've started Argus Dental and Vision. Your No Compete's up. Now it's Katie bar the door, isn't it?
Well, I started this company in 2008, and coincidental with our most regulated presidency. And so the environment in which I started this company compared to the first was quite regulatory intensive. And so fortunately, along the way, we were able to keep our chin just above the bar and compete in the land of Goliath, right? My competition was Humana, Aetna, United Healthcare, Cigna, Guardian Dental, companies that you know of. All we needed was their crumbs and to grow little by little. So we created a niche for ourselves, became known as a reliable company, and we always operate with a sense of urgency. And so there's an old saying, if you don't run your company like you're going to keep it forever, you will. And so I never looked at building a company and selling it. I just looked to build the best company that I could. And I think the most enjoyable thing for me along the way is problem solving and building an environment that people like to come to work. We have 140 employees, and that's a lot of families that I affect. And I'm proud of the fact that I can help a good segment of our city, individuals in our county, have a job and make a living and look forward to going to work.
You should be very proud to sit there and start a company with 2 employees, yourself and your CFO, and to grow it to that size and provide that kind of living for your people. But more importantly, I sense you also are very passionate about providing a customer value.
We think that we negotiate for our patients, or I should say our policyholders, to provide them with one of the best values that we can. It's a tricky balance. Everybody wants their hand in the cookie jar. Providers want their hand in the cookie jar. The members want their hand in the cookie jar. Agents and brokers want their hand in the cookie jar. And at the end, we hope we have a little bit of profit too. So it's a balance that you have to strike. And over time, I think it's got to be a win-win for everybody. And so we don't have just one customer, the policyholder. Our customers are our dentists, our optometrists, our ophthalmologists, our specialists, our agents and brokers, and our staff.
So share with our listeners, and now you've got this business, you've grown it from 2 to 100 plus people. What keeps you awake at night?
Oh, well, there's been plenty of times when making payroll was going to be a difficulty. You've heard that. I mean, sure. It's almost like a cliche, right? Yeah. And then, of course, if there was anything left over, I could pay myself. I've heard businesses advice say, pay yourself first, and then that way I could never make that work. I was only the last person. If there was anything left over, I would be paid. So those things keep you up at night. Always trying to grow your business, thinking how to do things better keeps you up at night. It's not an easy journey, but it's definitely well worth it in the end if you're successful.
Well, and it's public knowledge because it was you have an offer, and you don't need to discuss the program, but you may be transitioning into another opportunity, right?
I did. I had some if you build a good business, larger companies usually tend to start poking around. And I had some interested parties, medical carriers that you would know, come talk to me. And my first company that I sold, I did not get a professional banker, an investment banker, to represent me. And so I think I probably should have. And so this time around, I said, whoa, I got a pretty nice company. I'm going to get a professional to represent me. And I searched and found Raymond James. You know Steve Rainey, he's a local guy. And I felt as if I was using a local company. And so they represented me and brought me some options that I never would have been able to find on my own. And so we were very flattered when Aflac, you know, the duck company, they're in the Fortune 425, but worldwide they're the 125th largest company. Believe it or not, 70% of their business is from Japan.
Wow.
They insure every 1 out of 4 Japanese households with cancer insurance. Believe it or not, Japanese get 50% of them get cancer.
Wow.
I know, it's sort of weird. But so they came and poked and prodded and flew down in their fancy jet and found me at the dead end of 4010 West State Street, and I was rather impressed. So we came to a deal pretty quickly. After 60 days, we signed an agreement, and I'm looking forward to it. I told the CEO, listen, I've never been successful working for anybody all my life, but at this stage of my career and my life, and it's a fine company, great culture. It's a public company that almost acts like a private company. I'm excited. A lot of opportunity.
Well, to your point, you've gone. Your journey has been epic. And I appreciate you sharing it today. Having this opportunity for an exit, I've done that a couple of times. It's kind of like it's a good thing and a bad thing, but it's more good than bad because it really brings a culmination of all your efforts, and you're able to sit back and just kind of say, wow. And I think I'm sure you're going to be very proud when that transaction finally comes to fruition. Oh, yeah, it's imminent. And I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. It's the journey, not the destination, right? So it's sort of bittersweet. I'm going to stick with this company for the foreseeable future, but I've always got my eye on what else could I do next. I think entrepreneur is a positive euphemism for attention deficit, right? And so we are always looking for something else. We see too many opportunities. That's the problem. We see too many opportunities. So if you or I had a couple of lifetimes, God only knows what other fun things we could do. I can tell you, you're right. I chase shiny objects. And, I mean, for you to be on Home Shopping Network with your
that's definitely shiny object.
Yeah, I had forgot about that. How cool was that? So now you can say you're an on-air celebrity, and so Nick, I totally appreciate you sharing your journey today. I know the listeners out there are excited with some of the things they've learned. I know I've learned a lot today. It sounds like your family's on the right path. They all doing good? Oh, yeah. I'm very fortunate. My wife's so supportive. She doesn't handle necessarily stressful times as I do, so I just learned to sort of compartmentalize things. I don't need to let her share things with her that don't necessarily worry me, but they would worry her. I got that T-shirt. Right. So, again, this is Dean Akers. Each week we bring you the CEO Hour, where we bring top CEOs and entrepreneurs to share their journeys. Today, Dr. Nick Kavouklis has been with us. He's the CEO of Argus Dental and Vision, and his journey has been epic, all the way from graduating from dental school, being a dentist with the Carneys, having a vision to create this value for both customers and his constituents in the dental field, have created these businesses that he's now going to end up becoming a legacy in. Any final point you'd like to make, Dr. Nick? I go back to I had a recent individual who has a great idea for a business, and he is
looking for an operator. He's looking for somebody to kick him off the couch and actually execute. And the advice I told him is, listen, you just got to get out there and start. You will fall down. You will make mistakes. Just expect it. And that way, otherwise just pontificating forever is just not going to get you anywhere. Get started and expect to fail. And if you fail, the worst thing is, as I wish I could, I'll only have to paraphrase Teddy Roosevelt's quote that he took from Herodotus, and that was, it's the man in the arena whether he fails or not.
Well, great advice, great insight. Again, Dr. Nick, thank you for coming on. To my listeners out there, we hope we met your needs this week of a great idea. And like Dr. Nick said, let's get off the couch and let's just get started. So again, this is Dean Akers bringing you your weekly CEO Hour, and we'll see you next week, same time.
Thanks for listening to this CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanakers.com. That's deanakers.com. And join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.